Hi, I've got these two ammunitions, both sent to me by viewers. Thank you. This is labeled IMI. This is labeled IMI. This is labeled shooting with the best. This is labeled shooting with the best. This ammunition has a 55 grain full metal jacket spear point projectile. This ammunition has a 55 grain full metal jacket spear point projectile. In looking at the labels, the only difference I can find is that this is labeled 223 Remington and this is labeled 5.56 millimeter. This brings up the topic of, is there a difference between 5.56 and 223? And when you discuss that, there are three questions that come up. One, are there really any differences between 5.56 and 223? Two, if there are differences, what are they? And three, is there enough difference to make a difference? The answers to those questions are greatly debated. They are also not what we're talking about today. We are not debating the difference between 5.56 NATO and 223. What we are asking is there a difference between IMI's 5.56 and IMI's 223? Is there really any difference between these two, or did they put the same ammo in both boxes and just label it differently for reasons of placating the marketplace? Well, we'll shoot these side by side and see if we can find any differences. Also, this ammunition is labeled M193. This Federal American Eagle 5.56 NATO ammunition is labeled XM193. So we have two 5.56 NATOs, both with 55 grain full metal jacket spear point projectiles. This one is labeled M193, this is XM193. Is there any difference between these two? Well, we'll shoot these side by side and see if we can answer that. And we'll start with some tedious chronograph testing. Before we even get to the chronograph, in just opening the boxes, I can see a couple of differences in these ammunitions. The 5.56 is on your left and the 223 is on your right, and I can see that the 5.56 casing has been heat treated. Also, when I line these up, even though they're both 55 grain projectiles, the 5.56 projectile protrudes from the casing about 2 millimeters more than the 223 does. So there are definitely some visual differences, but will these make any difference? Let's go to the chronograph. And we'll start with our IMI 223 ammunition. .30-34. .31-31. .30-74. 30-73, 30-50, and 31-35. Let's see how that compares to the IMI 5.56. And now our IMI 5.56. .30-73. 31-02. 30-94. 30-57. 30-99. And 30-66. Now we'll see how that compares to the Federal. And now our Federal XM193. .31-19. 31-08. 31-38. 30-97. 31-12. And 31-28. Now let's go crunch the numbers. Well, we crunch the numbers, and it comes with the normal caveats that chronographs don't always agree with each other, and certain environmental factors like elevation and ambient temperature can affect chronograph results. But the results we got were with the IMI 223 ammunition, a mean velocity of 3,082 feet per second. With the IMI 5.56, 3,081, a difference of 1 foot per second. Now, the Federal American Eagle ammunition got a mean velocity of 3,117. That's 36 feet per second more than the IMI 5.56. 36 feet per second more is within the variation of one round to the next, and not even close to enough difference to make a difference. So far it looks like our ammunitions are really consistent, but how will they compare for accuracy? Let's see if we can put that to the test. Now I've got my Colt AR-15A2 loaded with the Federal XM193 ammunition, and I'll shoot this target from 100 yards, and let's see what kind of group I can hold. I've used these green pasties so the shot holes are easier to see, and now I have my A2 loaded with the IMI 5.56 ammunition, so I'll shoot this prone unsupported at 100 yards, and let's see how the group compares. So I have the group of the IMI 5.56 marked with the red pasties, and you can see that the point of impact is basically the same, but the group is not nearly as good. So is that the ammunition, or is it just me? Well, I'll go back to 100 yards and I'll shoot another group with the IMI 5.56, and we'll see if I can get a group that's any better. So my first group of the IMI 5.56 marked with red pasties, not very good. Second group of the IMI 5.56 also marked with red pasties, significantly better. The one that's out here, that was just me. So we see with the IMI 5.56 we get a group that's comparable to the Federal American Eagle 5.56. Possibly a point of impact shift, again, possibly just me. But now I have my A2 loaded with the IMI 223 ammunition. Let's shoot that from 100 yards and see what kind of group we get. And I've got the IMI 223 ammunition marked with the yellow pasties. And we see basically in the same place, but not a very good group. Let's try this drill again. And our second group, the IMI 223 ammunition, is also marked with yellow pasties. Now, the one shot that was really low, that was just me. The rest of them, it appears that our point of impact hasn't shifted in any significant way, but the group is still just not very good. So the takeaways from all of this. First, remember that we are not debating the difference between 223 and 5.56. We are asking two questions. One, are there any differences between the IMI 223 and the IMI 5.56, and if so, what are they? And two, how does the IMI 5.56 M193 ammunition compare to the Federal American Eagle 5.56 XM193 ammunition? Well, in terms of our first question, are there any differences between the IMI 223 and 5.56? Yes, we saw that the 5.56 had heat-treated casings, and we saw that the amount to which the projectile protruded from the casing was different. So there are at least some differences, but how did those translate into performance? In terms of power, no difference. In terms of accuracy, that's a little more complicated. When you have two different types of ammunition and the amount that the projectile protrudes from the casing is different, that can affect accuracy in some rifles. In the case of my Colt AR-15A2, it appears to affect it in the sense that the 223 ammunition was not quite as accurate. Now, in terms of comparing our IMI 5.56 to our Federal American Eagle 5.56, again we saw that the difference in power was negligible. The difference in accuracy, at least for me today with my A2 platform, it would appear the Federal ammunition is more accurate. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the IMI 223 versus IMI 5.56 versus Federal American Eagle 5.56 video.